In today's live stream, we're going to be discussing how to import job cost estimates, how to import GL budgets, and also how to import accounts payable invoices. So let's start with the job estimates. So first I want to show you where to navigate to start the process once you have your estimate file created, which I'll show you in the next step here. In job cost, to get to the import utility, you come here to Tools, Import Estimates. And the first thing you need to do is go out and find your text file that we'll create. Okay, so you want to make sure you pick one of these two. You won't find it if it's on that one. You're going to go to the same spot your file's located and create a reject file. Okay, so that's what that is for. So if something doesn't import in, it'll put it in a separate file here in case some come in and some don't. They'll list the ones that do not in this reject file. This box here, if you want to bring in cost codes that aren't in your standard cost code list, when you bring the specific job estimate in, then it will allow you, the system, to create cost codes in their specific cost codes setup for that one job. Okay, so it won't bring in, if you have a new cost code on that import file, it won't bring it into the standard cost code setup. It'll just bring it into the job itself, that cost code on its own. Okay. If you would like to bring this estimate in as an approved estimate change, say this is the second import you've done on this job and you're bringing in some changes, then you want to mark that. But if it's the first in the original estimate, you don't mark that. The estimate extra here, you can leave blank because it's going to be on the template file. And I've got my printer printouts to go to print files, so leave that alone. And then all you do is hit start to get that going. Okay, so I'll show you, we'll run this process once we get this, we'll look at this template import sample that I've created. All right, so let's go over here and look at a sample estimate. It's a really short one. So the format is to have, you have two header lines. And this also, FYI, will be provided in the comments on this live stream. So these three templates that I'm going to be showing you for job cost, general ledger budgets, and EP invoices will post after the live stream's over. So for job cost estimate files, you're going to have two header lines. The first one is going to be static with a star, and then you're going to have the job number. And then underneath that, for that specific job, you're going to have your cost codes, your categories, dates, units, and amount. Units is not required. Just delete it if you, or put 0 if you want to not worry about units. So if you want to create another line on here, do something like that, and it knows it's part of this job because it's still under the star. Okay. Then the next job starts over with a new star. You've got the job number, and you have the related cost codes underneath. Okay, so this formula over here, if you add more lines, just make sure that copies down. Okay, so this chunk of information right here, you copy into Notepad. We're going to save it as file here. And we're going to close this. Can I come back into job cost? Go out to find that file. And then we're going to make a reject file. So I usually go in the same spot that I have my import file, make it the same exact name, but put reject at the end of it. I'm going to make it a text file. And I did make some cost codes in that file that aren't in my standard list. So I'm going to show you how that looks. I'm going to check mark that. It knows there's multiple jobs in the file. Again, leave that, can't do anything here, leave that blank. And I'm bringing in an original estimate, so I leave that unchecked. I've got my setup for my printer going. So I'm going to hit start. Let that go for a second. And let's go look and see what that printout looks like, just to show you. So as you can see, the 3 lines I had in there. So if you remember, got 3 detail lines. It's going to be in three lines. I've got cost codes that aren't in my standard list. So if you look at standard cost codes, I don't have a 1516. There's nothing there. I don't have a 17 and I don't have a 3373. Okay, so they're not in there. So what has happened is in the cost codes for that specific job, which is 03014, created a blank description line there. Okay, so you can come in here and edit the descriptions if you'd like. There is also some ways to bring that in on this import file, which I'll post on the comments. But you basically want to, you just want to know that it brings it in like that if it's not in your standard cost code setup list. Okay, so let's close that. So they're in the new file now. So we've got to post those estimate entries. So let's go out and find that batch. So it's right there. And I'm going to print to file and see that post. Okay, so let's go look at an estimate on that job. So there's my 2 new entries that I created for these 2 cost codes for my estimates, okay? So the same with 03002. That one was 3373. So there's the 21,500, okay? So 3373, 21,500. Okay, so that's how that works. A lot of people have standard cost code lists that they stick to, so the no description doesn't happen. But again, I'll post something on the comments on how to, if you're going to have non-standard cost codes, how to more easily get those descriptions in there in this import file. Okay, you have to add some more columns there. Okay, so that's the basics on how to bring an estimate in. Now, if you've got third-party software, you know, a lot of them integrate in, obviously, like Sage Estimating and stuff, or they'll create this file for you. But if you have, if you're using Excel, or if you have a different type of software that doesn't integrate as much, this would be like more the way to get it in using the Excel or text file imports. Okay. Okay, so let's move over to General Ledger. So now we're going to talk about how to get a General Ledger budget into the system. So a couple of things. You first want to go in here and under tasks, enter budgets. And you want to make sure you've got a budget in here. Okay, so I've got a 2023 approved budget that I'm going to be working with. Okay, so you can see there's some info in there. So the first thing first, before you import the budget, you have to make sure that there is a budget that you've already set up. If you need to create one, you hit create budget here. I'm going to do 2024 one. I can select my accounts from a list here of what's available in the system. So you can do ranges, go down to the bottom to pick them all. If you want to just get them all in there. So that's how you create a budget. It's pretty simple. Just, again, create new budget, type your year. You could have different budget types if you want. And you set those up in the custom descriptions menu. But you can have different budget types here. And then you select your accounts, hit OK, and then it creates the matrix for you. Okay, so you first have to do that step to get the to be able to import the budget from an Excel file. You have to set that budget up. Okay, so let's go look at a sample budget here. So the format for this is make sure that you have the static GLB column here. You've got your budget year, your budget type, and your account number. So the annual amount and the period budgets 1 through 12 are over here, as you can see. And then the very last column is optional. So if you're using the option to have both accrual and cash basis, you have to put something here. But if you're only using one basis or the other in your general ledger setup, then you do not need to fill that in. Okay, so I'm not using that, so mine is blank. Okay. All right. So basically, it's pretty self-explanatory. But if you want an annual amount only, you can put that in here. If you want monthly amounts, you put those in here. And what it's going to do, it's going to spit out your information that you need to copy to your text file. Okay, so this chunk right here, I'm going to copy to a text file. Okay, so save this. I'm going to add a line though, just to show you what it does when you don't have one in there. All right, let's go back to General Ledger. So I've added an account here. I'm just going to check to make sure that is not already in the budget. So we're working with the 2023 budget. Already imported some amounts in. Make it bigger. It doesn't really have the option to maximize on this one, so you kind of have to drag it over and down. Okay, So 6110 is blank here. You can see, but I've already imported some amounts up here. Okay. So this is the manual way to type it into Sage. So let's go get out of here. So you see that 6110 is blank. And now we're going to go and import the budget. Okay, so I'm working with number 4, 10523-4. Let's go find that. It's a text file. And then let's a reject file. It's a text. Okay, so this option here, so I have duplicate amounts that will come into play. So if you look at the file here, the text file, I already had these amounts in the screen that was just up, where you enter in the manual amounts. So I can choose to replace the amounts in the system with this file, or I can reject the lines so they don't come in. Now, I haven't changed any of the amounts except for adding this last row, so that no matter what I pick, it won't matter. But let's say you bring in a budget and you want to change it, then you can change these amounts and use the replace button. If you want to keep what's in the system, and if you aren't sure if you have a duplicate line, you'd want to hit reject. So it warns you and spits out in the reject file what might have had a duplicate line. Okay, so I know some people play with multiple iterations of budgets, so just wanted to explain that part there. Now, if I add a new line here, it's going to bring that in just fine, no matter what I pick here. Okay, so let's just hit the start button. And let's go check our budget. 2023 approved. And let's scroll down, and you can see the new line that came in. Okay, and it kept everything else in there. Okay, so again, this template file will be posted in the comments area for you to use. But if you, one tidbit, if you want to know how to create multiple budget types, maybe you have quarterly ones you want to do for the year, or something you could do in the custom descriptions in the GL budget types right here, you just type in your different budget type descriptions. So there's an approved, revised. If you want a third one, you could call it final. You just type over budget type 03 in the custom descriptions. Then when you go back into your budget screen here, it'll be available right there. Okay, so I know some people have, maybe some quarterly things they do, but that's where you would do that. Okay, so let's jump into importing accounts payable invoices. Okay, so in accounts payable, to get to that spot, you're going to come up here and hit Tools, Import Invoices. Again, I'll show you the text file and post it in the comments, but this will be, you'll navigate to your text file that you create, navigate to a spot to post your rejection file, and then you just hit Start. So one thing I do want to caution is even when you look at this import format, so you shouldn't have to, because I'm going to give you the file, But depending on your setup in, which I'll show you in the accounts payable settings, these fields, this import format and the format I give you here might be different. So accounts payable is the hardest one to get initially formatted correctly with the template file because of all of this, all of the differentiations you can do with distributions and settings. So taxes and discounts and, is your commitment fields or extras available? All this stuff could be different depending on your setup. So if you struggle with getting the import template to work, and can't figure out from the help menu or from this import format, reach out to us because that is the hardest one. The other ones aren't as bad. So I just wanted to clarify that there. Okay, so in your accounts payable settings, to help you with that, you can look at your, see if your discounts are on or off, payment date usage, taxes. So you can see what you're using in here to help you get the import file set up correctly. And then your distribution settings as well, right here. Or if you're struggling with it, reach out. But it's because it's not the easiest one to get quite correct. Okay. So let's go to the import file and look at how this is set up for my setup. Okay. So there'll be this disclaimer at the bottom, just to make sure you remember that. For my setup, I've got these fields that I need to fill in. So my vendor ID, so these are static. So you're gonna have 3 lines on AP invoice templates. You're gonna have the header record, API, you're gonna have the distribution, APD, and then APTX for tax. So I've got my vendor ID here, my invoice number, the description of my invoice, an amount, I've got tax discount, amounts, invoice date, discount date, payment date, accounting date. Now remember, these have to be like this in a text format. Sage doesn't like dashes and slashes in the date field. Okay, so that's it for the top line. So this top line right here is what we just went through right there. So for the distribution, I don't have this in my setup. So I'm going to start with the job number. I don't have extras, so I'm going to start with cost code, or I'm going to fill in cost code, category, expense account, my accounts payable account, and excuse me, these shouldn't be here, but and then my exempt tax right here. Okay, so I've got a file created here for AP. Show you the import process. Okay, so here's just a one-liner that's going to go into the system. So there's my vendor ID, invoice number, dates, amount, and my one line. Okay, and this is an exempt tax type of invoice. Let's go over here to accounts payable, tools, import invoices. I'm going to pick number 6. See if this comes in okay, because the setup is always kind of quirky. Make sure this goes to the desktop. Yep. And I'm printing to my printouts, so I'm going to hit start. So a reason someone might import invoices is related to credit cards. If you want to have all your credit card charges to your credit card vendor, or if you want all of your credit card charges to go to specific vendors in your AP, that might be one reason to do this. Again, you know, a lot of third-party softwares help with creating files to bring in to accounting. You know, so there's a lot of different ways to do credit cards and to do different mass entry, and there's different softwares out there. So reach out if you're, you know, struggling with any of that. I do know some people are using this functionality for credit cards, or if they have the system that doesn't talk to Sage very well, that they're using to track all of their bills, and they can get the data out. That would be why you would use this. Okay, so now that import is, let's go look and see, should be in our new file. So again, to get to new files in AP, you have to hit the top invoice. And oh, it didn't come in, so let's check what happened here. Okay, so there are some warnings that are happening on these specific, on that specific vendor. So scroll down, sometimes page 2, distribution doesn't have a tax group. So I've got a tax setting issue, tax group setting issue. But what the system does first is checks for your different warnings. It gives you that, and then it'll tell you on page 2. You can't tell very easily, but on page 2, what has actually happened. Okay, so so to fix that, I need to fix my one of my fields on my tax group here. Okay, so it's probably actually on this line, the stuff I deleted might still need to be there. So again, like you're witnessing, you can use the clues in here to help you figure out, you know, what you might be missing. But reach out to us if you have trouble, you know, getting this in. But once that goes in, you know, you'll post the batch like normal, and you'll see it in just like you would have entered it in. You'll see it in your invoice registers here. Okay. The only other thing I would comment on is on the tax groups on here. I do believe you need to have tax groups on here, even if you don't use tax. So I will post a comment on there to clarify that and the message I ran into here. But it is strange if you don't use taxes. I believe, and I'll clarify that on the comments, you still do need to have that on this file. Okay, so reach out if you have questions on anything. Reach out to help@bangerinc.com. I'm going to check with Kylie here to see if we have any questions. Right now, we don't have any questions. So reach out. Again, this is the hardest one to get right. But reach out. I know it's budget year, and you know, there's a lot of estimating going on. So hopefully those tools work well for you. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time.